What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here with my best albums of 2023, my top 10 albums of 2023. Of course, see the links below for my best songs of the year, my best K-pop songs of the year as well. Best music of 2023, getting into it. Yeah, I think this is an interesting music year where we didn't really have too many new stars appear for sure, but music overall was still in a really good spot. I think look no further than the really overwhelming success of the live touring industry this year. Of course, a lot of attention has been paid to Taylor Swift and Beyonce. Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour, the highest grossing tour in history. But even apart from the heavy hitters, no matter how big or small we're talking here, touring was up. And I mean, the cost of touring tickets was up 12-15%, no matter how big the artist was. The demand is just so high for live music. And to me, that's kind of the biggest lesson with where music's at right now. And, I think everything else has kind of been a continuation of a lot of current lessons, right? Sampling has been incredibly heavy this year. Obviously, we know how influential TikTok is, how influential playlisting is on the success of songs. When you have a hit, does that necessarily mean you're a famous person, or is the song itself just the hit? A lot of familiar themes we've talked about before. There's a lot of talk about rap albums. It took a while for a rap album to get to number one this year. Does that actually mean anything? Country music finally making its presence felt on streaming after kind of being behind the eight ball on that side of things. A lot of similar themes that I think people have been talking about and paying attention to for some time. But let's get right into my albums. I'm not going to talk too long on any of these albums in my top 10 because I reviewed all of these albums when they came out earlier in the year. So if you want more in depth on any of these albums, of course, come back, check that out. Those albums, youtube.com/nostalgiapod, and let me know what you thought about any of these albums and let me know your top 10 in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. It's always fun to make a list because no matter who you are, you can make an inspired list. There's a lot of good things to pick from, and it's always hard to make one. So let's get into mine. Number 10 for me is IDK's F65, the DMV rapper. I believe this is his third album back in early May of this year. And to me, this was a career best work for IDK. He's a rapper who's been, I think, impressively continuing to blossom and show new sides to himself. And he's been impressing me for a while now because he keeps exceeding my expectations. And F65, I think, arguably was the best example of that yet, where he is starting to genre flip, genre bend, of course, really dexterous with his rapping, giving you all kinds of different flows. The technical ability is impeccable. I think a song like Pit Stop is really fun. I mean, he's got songs on here where he's using background choir, which is basically just a cheat code these days. I think it's a really impressive record. I mean, thematically, there were some fun moments where he's like sampling David Croft, the Formula One announcer, and referencing the driver Lewis Hamilton. Like, did not expect to hear that in May when it came across the transom in my ears. Nonetheless, I think IDK, this is his best record. It's, I think, really fun. There's lots of enjoyable songs such as Pit Stop that you can just take away out of the album, but as a full cohesive body of work, it really stands up. So shout out IDK. I think this is one of the more underrated rap albums of the year just because IDK himself doesn't have the biggest profile as a rapper, but definitely one that can't be missed. So number 10 for me, IDK's F65. Number 9 for me is Beautiful and Brutal Yard by J Hus. J Hus came back with his third album earlier this year in the summer after not giving us something since early 2020. It had been a minute pre-COVID for him. And JS, of course, I think has been very exciting for a while now because he's kind of the face of like that Afro swing genre over in the UK, a kind of a mix of UK rap, grime music, but also Afro beats. And that kind of just natural genre blend into its own kind of subgenre has been pretty exciting. And J Hus, I think, his charisma on the mic has always shown through. But this album I thought was really cohesive. And yeah, again, just I think the pockets that you can find within Afro swing as a type of music really lends itself to an album such as Beautiful and Brutal Yard really having a lot to it. And, I think a song to me like Problem Fixer stands out as something very catchy that you can revisit. But overall, this is an album that I think has a lot of layers to it and is really fun. UK hip hop is also represented on my songs list. Make sure you don't miss that. But what Jay Huss is doing feels very unique compared to some of his peers. And, he's a very successful and popular rapper in the UK, but not at the top. There are bigger rappers than him. And I think because Jay Huss is so adept at not just being a rapper, because Afro Swing lets him into making more dancey stuff, more singing stuff. He has a collab with Drake on this album, and Drake is honestly a really natural fit for this type of music. So I think this is something that also kind of got a bit under remarked upon, I feel like, in the summer, given how long it had been for Jay Huss. I mean, again, his last album was nominated for the Brit Award for Album of the Year. Like, there was so much hype off the last album, and I feel like this third one came and went, not in the sense that anyone didn't like it just so much that I think people missed it. So yeah, check out Jay Huss, Beautiful and Brutal Yard, number 9 for me. Number 8 for me is 10,000 Gex by 100 Gex. Gex giving us their first album since their debut way back in May 2019. It had been a long time for a full-length Gex album. We had been anticipating 10,000 Gex for some time. Of course, they had given us music in between now and then. They hadn't been gone or anything like that. But obviously, there's a lot of hype for the return of 100 Gex, just because they have, ever since they kind of rose up in 2018, 2019, really heralded as the face of hyperpop music. And that's kind of a label, honestly, that they've perhaps pushed back upon or been not super comfortable with what's been bestowed upon them, particularly on the internet and by critics and whatnot. Nonetheless, I mean, I had 1,000 Gex on my top 10 in 2019. Was really hoping that 10,000 Gex would deliver, and I think it absolutely did, albeit for reasons I didn't necessarily expect. It's less overtly hyperpop at times on this album, but they just do a lot of fun stuff. I mean, there's ska music on this, for example. They're a unpredictable duo, and I think that's why people like them so much. But you really should look no further than the very first track on 10,000 Gex, which would be Dumbest Girl Alive. To me, one of the best songs of the year. It's actually in my top 5 most played songs on Spotify this year. That's a song that right off the bat jumps into basically the entire riff at the beginning of Coheed and Cambria's hit Welcome Home from 2006. When I heard that, it truly melted my earphones. Like, I was completely blown away by it. Other songs on this album like Hollywood Baby stand out as well, but the unpredictability of Gex still giving you hyperpop at times and showing you why hyperpop is such a fun and eclectic subgenre of electronic music as well. I think the peerless nature of what Gex is kind of up to, like, obviously there's other hyperpop artists, but Gex is now outside of that mold, albeit in their own unique Gexy kind of way. So yeah, shout out 10,000 Gex from 100 Gex. Number 8 on my albums list. Number 7 for me is Dominic Fike's second album, Sunburn. This is an album I was certainly anticipating because Dominic Fike's debut album from 2020 was a bit of a letdown for me. Dominic Fike's been kind of hyped up as a pop prodigy, the next big thing in pop music, ever since his song 3 Nights really blew up several years ago, leading to the infamous label bidding war for his services. And Dominic Fike's certainly been around, of course, famously in Euphoria Season 2 as Elliot, and he's had a bit of a journey as well, talking about his substance issues over the course of making his last album, being on tour, making Euphoria itself. And this second album, I think, is a lot closer to the promise of what people were hoping for when we first heard Dominic Fike. That first album, although not without good qualities, was a bit of a letdown to me. Whereas Sunburn, I think, just kind of really grabs you because he has a knack for melody, like few people do. His ability to write songs, but also his really naturalness on acoustic guitar. Just kind of light production, but also his raspy voice. I mean, he's admitted that a lot of the vocal fry he has is due to his drug use. He's basically like Julian Casablancas from The Strokes. He's made the comp himself. Nonetheless, his raspy vocals on kind of jammy acoustic music sounds really good. And a song like Frisky, I think, really stands out to me on this album. Songs like Mona Lisa. I mean, there are just some bangers here. And I think his brand of kind of like pop rock with just really sticky melody, like that is why people were hyped about Dominic Fike. And there's a lot of jams on Sunbird. So I'm really hopeful that Dom continues to remain in the good space he says he is in now. And I'm very excited about what's next for him because I feel like we're just starting to scratch the surface of what kind of artist he can be. But still, his second album, Sunburn, number 7 for me. Number 6 for me is Bad Bunny's latest album, Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va a Pasar Mañana. This was supposed to be an off year for Bad Bunny. Of course, Bad Bunny coming off a gargantuan 2022 with his complete global breakthrough, Un Verano Sin Ti. Bad Bunny having already been the top artist on Spotify globally before that album came out, and of course dominating 2022, and was the number 2 artist on Spotify in 2023, even though his new album didn't come out until October. It only took Taylor Swift's monster year stopping him from maintaining the feat for 3 years in a row. We know how big Bad Bunny is, but the reason Nadie Sabe is on my list for 2023, and Un Verano Sin Ti was not on my list last year, by the way, is that this is the Bad Bunny I like. This is the Bad Bunny I want to have. Bad Bunny gave us lighter music on Un Verano Sin Ti, and hard to judge given the results, right? Now, that being said, Bad Bunny has effectively gone back to Latin trap with Nadie Sabe, gone back to his roots, a la his first 2 albums. And that was not where he was at his biggest, but to me that was when he was at his most interesting. And Nadie Sabe takes you back to that, but he's also doing some new stuff as well. Look no further than his song Thunder y Lightning with Puerto Rican rapper Eladio Carrion. That is a drill song where Eladio Carrion and Bad Bunny are going bar for bar trading bars. Bad Bunny's never made a drill song before, but when he made one, it was amazing. I love that song, one of my favorite songs of the year. Of course, people know songs like Monaco have become a big hit. Some of the lead singles off this have been huge hits. But to me, the fact that this is an album of Bad Bunny both looking way back to his past and doing it well, but also looking ahead and doing new genre experiments such as making a drill song. Those 2 things on the same album, to me, really excited me. And that's why I have Nadie Sabe from Bad Bunny on my list. Number 5 for me is Sampha's Lahai, his first album since Process came out way back in 2017. The next Sampha album had been highly anticipated by many for some time now, arguably up there with like the most anticipated future albums to come out. So like up there with the next Frank album, the next Rihanna album. The next Sampha album finally came earlier this year in the fall, and I think it definitely delivered. And Sampha, reminding anyone who might have forgotten why he's such a signature talent, such a unique artist, namely, and it's kind of simple, but like Sampha's singing, Sampha's vocals are just incredibly unique. They're so ear catching. They are so rich with texture. Sampha's voice is an instrument, to use the cliche. You just love to listen to the guy sing. And obviously the lead single, Spirit 2.0, really grabbed me. But to me, the song Only, just because that's a bit more up-tempo, you have some really fun drums on there, just a really lively beat. Sampha singing on that, I mean, it's really hard to compare to anything. And ultimately, he's someone where it's kind of hard for me to share the admiration I have for his music, just because it's almost hard to articulate just the beauty of like listening to him sing and giving you these lush, rich albums that really don't compare to anything else you get. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his, and he'd made some noise in between albums with some high-profile features, such as the Solange feature. A while back now at this point, of course, Kendrick Lamar's song Father Time from 2022, the Sampha feature on that, arguably the best part of the song. Whenever he pops up, he makes his presence felt. And then when you get a whole album from Sampha, like we did with Lahai this year, it's just a treat. So yeah, Sampha's Lahai, number 5 for me. Number 4 for me is SZA's SOS, which technically came out in the middle of December 2022. I originally wasn't going to include it, but I saw a lot of other people including it on their lists. And the more you think about it, SZA's SOS absolutely impacted 2023. Most of its impact was in this year. And it's also a fantastic record. Really just immediately grabs you as soon as you listen to it. And after all the hype with SZA, the next SZA album coming out. A long wait between Control and SOS. When we finally got SOS, I was actually impressed with the range SZA gave us on this. Of course, there's tons of amazing R&B songs. There's a reason SZA is the face of female R&B right now. She's great. However, I was most impressed with songs like Ghost in the Machine featuring Phoebe Bridgers, effectively an indie song. F2F in particular, with those heavy drums. Like the genre experimentation we got from SZA on this, I think really stands out, especially when you compare it to, like an incredibly catchy song like Kill Bill, which is one of the biggest songs of the year, 1.5 billion on Spotify at this point, crazy. And to me, my favorite song on the album, which is Gone Girl, where SZA's really ear-catching, earwormy vocals really grabbed me. Yeah, I'm a big SZA fan. I have a lot of admiration for her. And to her credit, she's really come on as a gigantic artist. I mean, doing arena tours at this point. But I think it's for good reason. Where this is an album that, maybe it's a hair on the long side, but there's really a lot packed in there. And it was certainly worth the wait. So shout out SZA, who, I think especially in a year where there wasn't a lot of new faces, the fact that she was able to come back in such a big way at the end of 2022 and stick around with 2023, I mean, dominating the #1 album sales chart for so much at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of praise. So shout out SZA, number 4 for me. Number 3 for me is Heaven Knows by PinkPantheress, effectively the second project from Pink, credited as her debut album. Nonetheless, PinkPantheress, despite her young age, has been credited, hyped up as kind of a future face of pop music, already having a lot of extreme popularity and some big hits. Her song Boy's a Liar Part 2 with Ice Spice really made a lot of noise this year. Nonetheless, Pink, ever since her debut EP from 2 years ago, she just, her ability to give you incredibly earwormy but seemingly future-facing pop music in short run times, giving you like verse, hook, verse in like a sub 2 minute song, I think has really caught a lot of people by surprise, especially someone who was coming up from, kind of humble SoundCloud and TikTok beginnings. And now, I think what Heaven Knows, there's just a little bit more polish, there's a little bit more sheen on this, and PinkPantheress is really happy to show you her kind of music and her qualities, a lot of digging in the crates from the production and sampling inspiration side of things. I know her UK fans really notice a lot of those pulls where us Americans maybe don't recognize the importance of some of the reference points at first glance. But PinkPantheress, for me, Heaven Knows, I mean, like her melody game is just so strong right now. I think for me, my favorite song has to be Feel Complete at this point, which I just consistently go back to. But she also has a really fun collab on here with Central C. Overall, though, I like just about the entire album, the entire track list a lot. I think it's a really special record, and yet it only feels like Pink is scratching the surface of what kind of artist she can be. She's just starting to become a live performer. She's still pretty green at that. Nonetheless, despite her young age, I think she's clearly at the forefront of the future of pop, and she's a really exciting artist. And I thought Heaven Knows was a really awesome next step from her, and just has a lot of things to revisit and enjoy about it. Number 2 for me is Olivia Rodrigo's Guts, Olivia's second album, the follow-up to her smash hit out of nowhere debut album Sour in 2021. And Olivia's Guts, I think, is clearly better than Sour. It's very much an evolution of her sound, her debut sound, but I think she takes the pop rock, light pop rock that she gave us on Sour, takes it a bit further on this, and as a result, there's just kind of, to me, there's more bangers. There's more fun songs to listen to on Guts than there were on Sour. And not that there's not a bunch of ballads on Guts as well, but I think a lot of these ballads are quite strong, When I heard this for a while, I was like, that's probably my album of the year. I don't think anything's going to top that. And I had it as my album of the year for some time, but we'll get to that in a second. I think with Olivia's Guts, I think the level up as a songwriter is fun to I think, spend time with. She's kept it all in-house, kind of running back a lot of the things, still working with Dan Nigro as a producer, not really changing up too much stuff. And yet you have a song like Vampire, which really feels like the next step from a song like Driver's License. There's just really sticky, lines that she can say. She can curse like few people can in pop. The bloodsucker, fame fucker, bleed me dry like a goddamn vampire. Like, that's up there with the best lines of the year. Like, and that's on your debut single your lead single for the new project. Get Him Back, really fun to revisit, really catchy. I love the playfulness to that song, and that's very much kind of in the good for you spot in this album, I guess you could say. Love Is Embarrassing, All American Bitch, I think is arguably the best pop rock song on the album. That goes pretty damn hard, honestly. Like, she has a lot of fun energy when she gets into the pop rock bag. I mean, what more can you say about Olivia Rodrigo at this point? I think, if anything, Guts feels like a continuation for her. I'll be very curious what's next for her and if she takes a bigger leap with the third album. I mean, Guts even has the same aesthetic of the color purple that she likes to use with a lot of the branding, the way she did in the first album. Like, I'm curious if now, and she's still very young, of course, so it makes sense that's taking some time. I'm curious what the next big step is for her. But clearly, this is a sound, this is a style that is far from played out from Olivia. I think she does it so well. But that would have been my album of the year if it wasn't for my number one. And my number one album of the year this year is Something to Give Each Other by Troye Sivan. This completely blew me away and came out of complete nowhere for me because I was really very much not a Troye Sivan fan coming into this year. I wasn't too impressed with him as an artist to this point. Particularly, I just never thought his vocals really amounted to much. But the vision that he demonstrates on Something to Give Each Other, and as a result, the production choices that he makes, really fits his strengths as a singer. And that overall vision that he gave us with this album really impressed me. And I think it's a really fun album to revisit. Starting right off, you have the lead single Rush, which is just a absolute club banger. A song just kind of about the euphoria of having a night. Very flashy and at times polarizing music video accompanied it. But that is a song that's just going to be a club staple forever. Like, I was so happy to see it get Grammy attention, by the way, and get a nomination, just because I think that's definitely one of the best songs of the year. It would have made my top 10 songs of the year list as well, but I like to differentiate, so I had to honor the album overall. Rush is a damn smash. And I mean, like, when I heard that out, I was like, who is this Troye? Because this is not the Troye I recognize to this point. And then you listen to the album, track 2, What's the Time Where You Are? Man, that beat goes. Using that Troye Baby, like, DJ ad-lib as well. I think that song is so damn good. One of Your Girls also really grabs you. Still Got It. Got Me Started with the really noticeable, overt Bag Raiders sample flip, really in your face there. Shout out Australia, Troy's home. I think it's just a record that really rewards multiple listens because it has such sonic cohesion to it, and for the most part it's very upbeat, very fun, very lively. I mean, there's moments where he has his singing backed up by like church choir, and I'm like, god damn, like, is the cheat code for many? But to hear Troye Sivan do that on this album where he was already flexing with a lot of his decisions, I was just really impressed with it. And it's the album I found myself going back to as an album the most this year, and that's why I think it had to be my album of the year. And again, I did not see this one coming into this year because I was not a big Troye fan to this point. So that's my top 10 albums of the year. I'm going to review real quick. Number 10, IDK's F65. Number 9, Jay has Beautiful and Brutal Yard. Number 8, 100 Gex, 10,000 Gex. Number 7, Dominic Fike's Sunburn. Number 6, Bad Bunny's Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va A Pasar Mañana. Number 5, Sanva's La High. Number 4, SZA's SOS. Number 3, PinkPantheress Heaven Knows. Number 2, Olivia Rodrigo's Guts. Number 1, Troye Sivan's Something to Give Each Other. Some honorable mentions here. Doja Cat's latest album Scarlet. No Name's latest album Sundial. I may have picked songs from those albums instead, thus didn't consider them for my albums list. Also wanted to shout out Carolyn Polachek's album. Holly Humberstone's impressive debut album, Kalela's comeback album, Raven. Yeah, then also on the uh, dishonorable mentions, albums that disappointed me this year. I have a list I want to get to for sure. Starting off, how about Janelle Monáe's The Age of Pleasure? I'm a big Janelle fan. The previous Janelle album, Dirty Computer, topped my list in 2018. I was just let down. I didn't revisit it all that much, and I just didn't think it was kind of up to her really high standard, unfortunately. I really tried to do I pick a song for to get her on the list, but I just couldn't talk myself into representing the album at all, unfortunately. Also on my dishonorable mentions list, Travis Scott's Utopia. After all that hype from Astroworld, I just didn't think it quite delivered. Not that it wasn't without merit, but just didn't quite hit the highs I needed it to. Also, Ray Shremmerd's latest album is Shrem for Life, which I liked at the time, but just didn't find myself revisiting as much as I would have hoped as a big Ray Shremmerd fan. Also, Macklemore's solo album Ben, which not that I had high hopes for it, but just really came and went for me. And lastly, on my dishonorable mentions, I have to shout out Kate Tremine, the Kate Tronada and Amine collab album. I thought that was just a gigantic dud. Honestly, Kate Tronada's beats were okay, but not up anything special per his standard. And Amine's rapping was just really kind of lazy to me, and certainly below his standard as a really awesome rapper. So yeah, that one really just didn't land. And I thought that was going to be a summer staple, the way that was kind of trending with the Forever single, but no, didn't work. So yeah, those are my top 10 albums of the year and some albums I didn't like as much as well. Of course, see the links below for my top 10 songs of 2023 and also my top 10 K-pop songs of 2023. And of course, stay tuned for my top 10 TV shows and top 10 movies of the year as well. Let me know what you think of my list. Tell me yours. And for more reviews and year-end content, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.